Newstalk ZB.
Commentary box after 8, of course, being a Monday, 23 minutes away from 8. I was mentioning before the news that everyone's away on holiday, and that includes the Prime Minister, so we've got an acting Prime Minister, and his name is David Seymour, who's with us. Good morning.
Good morning, Mike.
I asked Tom McClay, the Modi thing, you were there as well. Is there a magic about him? Is there something there about Modi?
You don't get to be the Prime Minister of 1.4 billion people and win 3 times in a row without having a bit of an X factor. And I went along to his rally more out of political nerdism than any professional engagement. So I sat up there next to him in Lux, and he got up and gave a speech. And wow, he's a cross between a sort of charismatic Baptist preacher, Winston Churchill, and a sort of New World leader. He was more performing than speaking. Yeah. So, I don't know, maybe a few tips might be helpful for the campaign here.
Have they, I mean, do you worry about the 20 billion, the obsession that we've had over this, or will this be like every other FTA? It'll work out fine, thanks very much.
You know, when I first got into politics, it was the Trans-Pacific Partnership. You might remember the woman who threw the dildo at Stephen Joyce, which was actually one of the first of many glorious things that have come out of the TPP. You know, trade is carried on. The world hasn't ended. There's always this controversy before you have a trade agreement, but in reality, it's been good for us. This India Free Trade Agreement will be fantastic. Just people I've spoken to over the weekend, the business opportunities that they have are enormous, and we'll look back on this and wonder what all the fuss was about.
Explain why Winston doesn't get it, or is it pure racism? As a guy who was against China, I mean, that's the beginning, the middle, and the end of your argument, isn't it? You can't be against China and still be against India, can you, or can you?
Well, let me try and put a positive construction on this. Winston's party is called New Zealand First, and whenever we as a country go out and negotiate with someone else, there's uncertainty. People aren't quite sure what to make of it. I'm a free trader. I believe it's positive to trade value for value with our friends around the world, but I think he capitalises on that uncertainty, and I think he also capitalises on people not remembering the last time he capitalised. You know, so good on him. I admire him as a politician.
Where do you think the economy's at? Because we focus a lot on the National Party in that sense, and I'll come to the roads of national significance. But if you looked at the PMI that came out on Thursday or Friday, whenever it is, that's you can't argue with those numbers. It's going gangbusters. Where's the economy at for the election?
I think it will be positive compared with now, and there's a couple of reasons for that. One is that despite what's happened in the last 48 hours, all the incentives in the Middle East are for peace and to open up the Strait, and you're seeing that Brent crude price is staying low, the price at the pump is staying low. That means more cash in people's pockets, so that's the first thing. The second thing is I think there's a lot of spirit out there that, look, crazy stuff's happened, it's been very painful, we've made sacrifices, we've had the light at the end of the tunnel closed down, it's time to just get on with it. So people's appetite for taking risk in difficult circumstances has increased. People have kind of priced the uncertainty in. So for those two reasons, lower energy cost and more sort of realism about what happens and how we get through it is going to leave us in a better place. Right,
the Rons and the Bishop announcement on Thursday, do you carry some of the can for that? Because, I mean, it's not working the way that it was promised, and you are the government of delivery, allegedly.
Well, first of all, I think it's important to separate what a political party being national campaigned on. They can campaign on whatever they like, but the government has to deliver what's realistic, and as a government, that's what we're doing. The second point I'd make, and I think Chris Bishop deserves some credit for this, is that he's really the first one in a generation to ask, why does this stuff cost so much? Because what I've discovered is politicians, the officials and the bureaucrats basically say, you want this project, here's the cost. You guys' job is either to raise more taxes, borrow more money, or cut something else to pay for it. We're just accountants, basically. Whereas Chris has gone back and started challenging them. We did this with the courthouses. They told us it's $250 million, $250 million for a courthouse. We said, hang on, you could build a really nice home for $1 million. How can one court cost 250 houses? We said, hey guys, you got $100 million, you figure it out. And that's the kind of approach that we've got to start taking. Don't just take the price the bureaucrats give us. So if what comes out of this, and Chris Bishop's already started to say it, what comes out of it is we start actually asking why stuff costs so bloody much in New Zealand, then we might actually be able to solve this problem.
But do you think we will?
Well, I tell you what, we definitely won't if we don't try, but we might if we do try.
Where are you at on the social media? Because it looks like National are going with Labor to try and get the social media, whatever form or shape it comes out in, across the line. Are you against banning kids from social media?
I'm against the ban. I don't think the ban will succeed. I acknowledge that parents are embattled. You know, we're halfway through a school holiday right now. I go and knock on doors and people are like, geez, only 4 days to go. So, you know, I understand, you know, where people are at, and parents need help here. I just don't believe that the state doing a ban is the help that is going to solve the problem.
Well,
and I base that on what's happened in Australia, what's happened in the UK. It's unfortunately, for every problem there is a solution that is easy, simple and wrong.
Do you think that you're too pure on it? Because you're right, indisputably right, but people want the help.
I think we're at a period of politics that has become more emotional and less analytical. And I realise that there'll be people, you know, throwing stuff at the radio saying, you're out of touch, you dickhead. Well, okay, fine. But our policies do have to work in the long term. We didn't build this country by knee-jerk reactions and running off every time there's a problem to put in place a policy that didn't work. I mean, we had a lot of that under Jacinda Ardern, frankly. I'm here to say, look, we want to build a great country, but it's going to take a bit more thought than the first thing that comes along.
Could Elbow say that no, it's not ideal, and no, it's not working the way I thought it would, but at least we've made a dent and it's better than it was, therefore your argument doesn't stack up?
The stat I saw was that before he did his ban, 84% of young Australians were using the apps that he banned. After he did his ban, 78% are using the apps that he banned. So I guess he could claim that that 6% drop is a success. But I think the fact that even he is now reeling to cover over with, you know, new extensions to the ban and new penalties and banning VPNs and all the other crazy stuff exposes the real Achilles heel of this, is that any ban that is strong enough to outsmart motivated teenagers is also going to wipe out privacy and internet freedom for everyone else, because teenagers are generally better at getting around this stuff than adults.
Before he left on holiday, Luxon was talking about the possibility of us joining this Defence Alliance, Australia, Fiji, etc. Where at government level is that at? And what literally does it mean? Because I'm assuming if somebody did something to Fiji, we'd go to help anyway, and vice versa.
First of all, it is being discussed at government level. It will take final sign-off by Cabinet, but before the Australians and Fijians made their announcement, we were aware of it and talking about it, and had given a mandate to our people in the diplomatic corps to go off and potentially negotiate to be part of the agreement. Obviously, the Australians and Fijians would have to want us to be part of it, so there's a bit of water to go under that particular bridge. But in the end, we will have an ocean of peace agreement with at least the three countries, and it will start to build out a clear message to anyone else that wants to come into the region, or frankly fire missiles into the region, that people down here like each other, they work together, and if you want to do business down here, then you've got to do business with us.
Well, the problem with that is, do you think it'll make a jolt of difference?
I think it will. If you look at this event over the weekend, you know, putting aside the occasional anti-India sentiment out in New Zealand, there was a warmth about the relationship between Luxon and Modi, between New Zealand and India, and between Kiwi Indians and the rest of New Zealand. Now, I could say some of those things about the relationship between, you know, Chinese Kiwis and the rest of New Zealand, and maybe between China and New Zealand, but at government level, when you're firing missiles into the sea, not so far from where Kiwi kids, the lucky ones at least, are going on holiday this weekend, this school holidays, then it's not so warm anymore. And I don't think you could have imagined that rally with a politician from China, unfortunately. So the impact that this is having is that China's years of diplomacy saying, we are your friends, unravels when they pull these kinds of stunts.
Good to see you. Appreciate it. Acting Prime Minister David Seymour, 14.2.